Each and every one of you for coming today. We just really appreciate that people have come forward, and I really want to thank my dear friend Belinda for all of, and Earl for what they have to bring forward. It reminds us that our way of life is not artifact, it's not mythology, it's live today, and they are our curriculum. They are the ones that are helping to guide the youth. And that's what our concern is here with this process, is that we are here to protect the rights of the youth. 2/3 of the population of most of the Indigenous communities is youth, and we need to help provide and protect that way of life. We don't want salmon to be part of a mythology that's only reflected in artwork. It's real. It was one of the first gifts provided to our people to sustain us, as well as the cedar was provided as a gift to sustain us. It kindles quickly so that we can find warmth. It also provided our shelter. You didn't need tools to work with cedar. You could split cedar just using water and wedges. So it was one of the most important gifts for us, as well as provided for the transportation system. So that's what our concern is when you ask us, how do we reconcile Aboriginal rights and Crown? I think it's really important that Crown begins to understand none of this is consultation until you hear what we're saying. We're very opposed to economic development that is resource plundering, whether it's marine environment or it's the land environment. Resource plundering affects each and every one of us in our way of life. British Columbia has taken a lot of pride in its natural beauty, its natural resources, and here we are at the threshold of some serious exploitation that could cause our way of life to disappear completely. And for First Nations people, many of us, very concerned that as pipelines go through, as tankers go through, it affects the last existence of our remains in the land, of our artifacts in the land. Our place is removed from history as the land becomes developed, as it continues to be overturned. And we've had this, as Belinda talks about many of her stories, we've had many of our important, not artifacts, but important landmarks removed. And they tell us about important history, or about how our young people are to be taken through puberty. A stone bowl, for instance, removed from where it existed for probably centuries, just removed by non-native people wanting something that they consider to be valuable, that they need to have for their home, that they want to put in a fountain possibly in their garden. So that we're very concerned about what this impact will have on us as a way of life. I think that for me, thinking about the Salish Sea, now that it's been called the Salish Sea, there's something very significant, very important. It's there to be protected for all Salish people. It's a gesture of reconciliation, of recognition of those treaty rights, of those rights, as Earl said, existed and were practiced before proclamation, before the Royal Proclamation. And that we as saltwater people, before we had a Douglas Treaty, before we defended the Saanich and Bay Marine case, saltwater people were the richest people in the world. We were taught that by one of our great teachers, Dave Elliott Sr., that we never had to hunger for food, we never had to beg for money, because everything that we needed was provided for us by the riches of the sea. Where we live in Sail is one of the most important saltwater mudflats. And mudflat is very distinct in all the life forms that it provides. It's all there to provide and build on each system, sustaining each other. So that the eelgrass is there for the crab, it's also there for the 5 different kinds of salmon. They court each other in there. As well, there's many medicinal plants that are there to help clean the water and keep it clean. The barnacle life is there to keep the water clean. And we see all of that disappearing. Very, very concerned that wave action has an impact on that. Spills have an impact on that. And Earl talked about that wave action, the vibration, that we don't know all what it does to the microsystems that are in the water. And in Sanderson Bay, we also have the freshwater, saltwater marsh. It's a very distinct feature of the environment that has a very distinct purpose. Without it, there are microorganisms that will die off. So we have a great concern as this kind of economic development tries to push its way into our territories. And we're not just a land-based people, as many people have said here. We are marine-based. We have names of our places where we've been, places where we've lived. And our land base is very small because we didn't need to have an accumulation of land because we've used the water, we used the lands. Our families camped in very regular places. They met up in very regular places. They used the land in a very specific way. And that kept us strong as people, kept us united as people. Belinda provided her name, her Indian name that was given to her. My name is Tiwanama, and that name comes to me from Nanaimo. And that's to remind us where we originate from, where our mothers originate from. That's my great-great-grandmother's name, given to my mother, and then now given to me and given to my daughter. So it reminds us of who we're related to, but it also reminds us of where we come from. And so that if we do happen to be in a territory and we do want to have some fishing privileges or hunting privileges, we may have relations there if we share our name. So that often is something that we do, share our name. And I think that it is just a real concern, again, that we think about the cumulative effects of this kind of development. And it starts from that very small system, the algae system, the one-cell life form. I think it's very much of a concern. I saw a lady from Connecticut one time singing to a little one-celled animal, and that animal started to dance as she was singing. And she was just reminding us about how important our connection is to the smallest system. And much of the artwork reminds us of that all the time. The messages, the most important messages come to us from the smallest messengers. So you will often see a mouse as your most important messenger. A very humble being will come to you and provide that message. And I think that's how we as First Nations people are coming forward. We may be small in terms of what we're able to bring forward. We may not be able to have a lot of policy analysts, research at our disposal, lawyers at our disposal, but we come with a very important, clear message to save the environment. And it's not to save the environment for us to this day, but to save it for the generations of children that are ahead of us. And a real concern for us is that what sustains us as a people is our way of life. What sustains us as a people are our teachings. We want that to help our youth, to ground them in what's good about their identity, what's strong about their identity. And we want to make sure that we stand tall for the environment for them. We cannot just lay down and let this happen without saying something. This is not right. This is not consultation, because somewhere along the line, the minds have been already made up by the federal and provincial government, failing over and over and over again to recognize what has been put before you already about Aboriginal rights, Indigenous rights, First Nations rights, Douglas Treaty rights, whatever you want to call it. It's there. It's been laid out before you, and you need to recognize it and uphold it as we try to do, because it's very important. And I know I grew up on that mudflat, and I reflect over and over again how I used to watch our fishermen go out there, and like Belinda and others have said the reef net fishery was a practice, but as we knew when we grew up, it was easy to get fish. It was easy to hunt ducks. They were there in vast quantity for us. Our table was set for us, and that's what Dave Elliott told us and wanted to instill in us, that we were the richest people in the world. And that mudflat has a particular smell, and some people don't like it. But when you walk up there on it, you can just see how alive it is, all of the different features of it. And we know very much that the eelgrass is damaged by boats, by tankers, just by people. We know how important that feature is to our bay, but also everywhere. We can't understand why the province allows those products to be harvested, and they call it aquaculture. And that's destroying as well our sea urchin. And the sea urchin is one of the most important products that we have. And it's being marketed internationally, but we cannot get it to sustain ourselves as a basic food. And now it's a medicine for the old people, and it's a gesture of respect because it's so hard to come by. So I think that we're asking to be heard. We're saying time and time again very consistently that we do not want to have these kind of developments happening in our waters or on our land. The hunting and fishing rights are there forever. They are not to be extinguished. They are not to be infringed upon. Those were things that were told to us by the government of the day. We've been given other words: accommodation, mitigation, restoration, reconciliation. And a lot of times it's us who bear the burden of telling you what that means. Yet we've consistently said the same thing. It means let us live as people free in our own homeland and using the land and the water together to sustain us as strong, healthy people. I find that the whole process has been very disrespectful, it's very confusing, and it's very coercive. In many situations, the first thing that comes to our tables is the offer of a mutual benefits agreement. And I think that's very coercive to do that to people who have been struggling with major health issues, issues of housing, and issues of really no economy, no way to build up an economy to sustain the people. So I really think that if you're taking anything back to the National Energy Board, it's to really go back to the table and really talk about mitigation. We were talking to them about mitigation, meaning how are we going to sustain the salmon fishery? How are we going to ensure that the waters are safe for the whale? And then all the other microsystems, as we said, that we talked about that are so important. We look at the Fraser River, we look at all of these estuaries that are so important to us. Will they be there if there's that wave action? And that's a big concern. And we already know what's happening to our salmon, that it's not even wild salmon anymore, that it's been contaminated, and that was an economic development idea. So I think we need to be careful in what we do as we step forward, but I think that it's been really clear from First Nations that we've said no thank you to this, and how do we push back? So I just want to say hi Skahela, and I really hope that you will hear people today and tomorrow and throughout the time that you're traveling, that you will hear what people are saying, and you understand that it's very hard to come forward to processes like this because so much of our words get interpreted as consultation. It's not consultation until we actually are heard, and particularly in British Columbia. British Columbia exists at the goodwill of First Nations. British Columbia is still unceded First Nations territory. Hi, Skahela.